Hey everyone, this is James from TDB bringing you another Inbetweenisode. Today I am going to be talking about the cheapest tea that I drank regularly. How's that for a YouTube headline? It is none other than the 2004 Xiaguan Jiaji tool. So you can pick these bad boys up for about 60 RMB on Taobao from MXT, the place that I have got them. I recommend them. They're basically a Xiaguan specialist. They tend to have storage that agrees well with Xiaguan. There's a lot of ways that you can actually go quite wrong with Xiaguan. One of them is with just bad storage. You can be too wet, you can be too dry, but you definitely want something that has advanced it, which is why I tend to gravitate towards southern China, Taiwan, Malaysia. Those are all great places to try out. It's not necessarily all great from those locations, but definitely places to try out the different storage. It's also interesting because these cheaper teas are actually amongst the harder ones to brew in a way that makes them more satisfying and consistent. So I think there's a lot of user error involved, this is one that I do recommend. So I think people can go check it out. If you don't want to kind of traverse the Taobao maze, you can definitely go over to Teas We Like and pick it up for I think it's something like $22 or something for a 100-gram tool. So it's a little pricier. It's over twice the cost, but it's still a perfectly reasonable price where you're getting like a dollar session or whatnot. And frankly speaking, this tea, I hesitated to bring it on for a while, but I was a little bit burnt out of Xiaguan after my Xiaguan masochist report from earlier this year. But I think now is the time. So I have not had the tea since then. These are actually pandemic purchases. I decided to kind of just round out my collection with some Xiaguan at that point because I didn't have a ton other than Love Forever Paper Tong, which is kind of a Xiaguan in name only tea. But I would say this, as well as the Iron Cake 8653, again, a good version, the right batch, the right storage. Those are kind of the ideal reference teas. Also not necessarily an easy tea to brew. In fact, I see people on Reddit brewing these whole chunks. I think that's not a good way to go about this. You definitely want to break this tea up pretty fine in order to just make it a little bit easier for you to brew evenly. I think brewing one big chunk is definitely not a good way to go about it. So yeah, the rest of the episode, we're going to be drinking this tea. I'm surprised to see how little of these I see circulating because to me at least, this is just like a nice little workhorse. It really has those classic Xiaguan tastes and whatnot. And it's properly aged, and it does not cost very much at all. In fact, 60 RMB, it's like $7-8. So you're talking about 5 grams here. So we'll say, it's something like 40 cents per session. I mean, that's really not very much at all. Let's get into the tea. All right, so here we go. Because I am recording an episode, I give this 2 rinses. I wouldn't normally do that. Generally speaking, on these heavily compressed teas, you want to watch them really carefully on those first couple infusions. A lot will depend how much you've successfully broken it up. If you've successfully broken up pretty well, you can lean on it just a little bit for the steep. I usually don't like to completely flash steep the early brews of this because you're going to end up with brews that are really watery and too weak. The alternative is you can drink those brews and do it, but you just need to be sure that you're not overly judging the tea based off of those. In fact, this brew itself might be too watery, and that's just because it's hard to break this up. You don't want to, it's kind of about breaking it up real well, but you don't want just straight dust because that is going to brew quite nasty and not so good. So again, not the easiest things to brew if you're not used to it. I think in general, if you spend a lot of money on your tea cakes and stuff like that, you're going to have relatively easier shots, at least brewing tea so that it doesn't turn out completely awful. This will, take some experience and some fussing around. The good thing is it's really cheap, so it's not like you're throwing away a ton of money if you misbrew it once or twice. Let's brew a second one too. And the tea still is kind of decompressing. Definitely want to use boiling water for a tea like this too. You just need that extraction. And so sometimes in these teas, you'll need to brew them a little bit harder on the first couple, and then it will open up, and then you can brew a little bit more easily. Another thing that can work is if you give it a rinse and then just let it hang out for a while, up to 10 minutes or something like that, and then come back to the tea. and if you leave the lid on, and that heat and the soaking will just kind of do its job. So yeah, getting a lot of raisins, some pine wood on here, off the nose on this, and let's drink this deep one. We'll see if it is indeed too light. Fairly simple, but very familiar Xiaguan profile. And I feel like if you really want to know the Xiaguan taste, yeah, this is maybe the best way to go about it. This, possibly the 8653. The 8653 is, in my opinion, a little bit higher grade tea than something like this, or it can be. So that might be a little bit friendlier, but this is definitely like kind of your classic taste. I think this is too watery. I'm going to take one more sip and then... Yeah, a little too watery, so gonna dump this guy out. That's fine. If you don't lean on it heavily enough, that's just exactly what's going to happen. It's not a big deal. It's a lot easier to correct for underbrewing than overbrewing, because if you overbrew something, if you leave it for 10 minutes, the tea's kind of just done at that point. Cheers. Ooh, that is burly. It's been a while since I had this tea. That is like burly, tobacco. This is definitely one of those teas where it's not one that I need to sit down and like really sit down and appreciate. This is like good caffeine workhorse tea. Like even on another level from other factory teas, like I don't know, like a Dai 8582 or something like that. Which is a little ironic because, yeah, it does take a little bit of attention as far as the brewing goes. Yeah, this brew is just fully in Xiaguan territory. Very woody, very burly. Nice and juicy, actually. Hints just a little bit at those, kind of sweet, raisiny notes. But overall, it's not a super sweet one. If you get to criticize teas like this, they are definitely a little thinner on the mouth than something like the equivalent Dai productions. Dai, in general, I think, makes a little bit higher quality tea than Xiaguan. If you were to take kind of the averages. I don't know if you would call this as smoky or tobacco or retired smoke, one of those, but it's kind of integrated into tea in a fairly pleasant way, and it's definitely part of that kind of Xiaguan house taste. Yeah, this is just, decent. It's not a great tea, but it's one that, will get the job done for, I think, a lot of people. In fact, I think if I were to look at what people drink or talk about drinking, perhaps people drink this stuff and just don't talk about it. I think if you're looking for work teas and you like this sort of mid-aged factory profile, stuff like this is really underrepresented for what the quality that it brings. Again, not super high quality, but it's very inexpensive, and in my opinion, it's decent. Yeah, it's just kind of continuing, steep in, steep out. There's not a whole lot to parse on these infusions. There are, interestingly, kind of higher quality Xiaguans that you can pursue, specifically stuff that's before 2004, and you start looking at cakes and stuff like that, and they kind of represent the somewhat elevated version of a tea like this. Yeah, burly, woody, oily. I mean, stuff like this is definitely not dying. This is going to continue on for quite a while. Definitely not something I would choose to buy young and age in Seattle. That's for damn sure. So yeah, let me know if you like this episode. Let me know if you're actually someone that drinks these tools, because I am always curious to hear. I feel like these are pretty underrepresented in what people are talking about. Perhaps it's just one of those teas that just so workmanlike and so, it lacks the fireworks of like brewing the latest boutique or whatever, that people just drink it and don't talk about it. I mean, perhaps that is kind of the intended use of this tea, but I do find it interesting that hardly anyone talks about like kind of drinking these old Xiaguans from MXT. Yeah, it's tasty. It kind of just has this like nice sweetness to it. It's not too bitter. It's just very well balanced. I think I would struggle to drink something that was 10 years younger than this for sure. Got a little bit of that woody incense thing going on. So yeah, that concludes this In Between Episode. Thank you all for tuning in. Let me know how you liked it. I'll see y'all next time. Cheers.